And we are live. Gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mecca of Banter podcast. It's your boy, Hen, this week's host, Henry Wind. You can find me on Twitter at Henry Wind. It's a weird day to be a Manchester United fan. We specifically pushed back the starting of this podcast tonight so we could get the 6 p.m. Central Standard Time here in America closure of the transfer deadline day in January, which was extended out to February, just to see if there was any last minute deals that we needed to report on during this podcast. But Manchester United, in Manchester United fashion, decided that they were good with the reinforcements that they had. So a bunch of bullshit. We're going to dive into some transfers that we have in all of our teams, or the lack thereof. But let's introduce the fellas. We got Lucas Winkleman coming into you live, probably the highest man in the chat right now, coming off of a monster victory over Manchester City over the weekend. Lucas, how are you feeling?
Good. Hoove, that's a loud keyboard you got there, brother.
Funny, I was actually just hyping out two Dobes that he was breathing straight into his mic, so I guess we're both...
we're doing it live.
Yeah, normally we do a little sound check.
That's
what's
so
up,
funny.
boys? No, this is what's up? It's Winks. You can find me on Twitter at LCW21. If you had asked me yesterday, or introduced me yesterday as the man on top of the world, I would have been there. But now that we're at the end of the deadline, it kind of mellowed things out a little bit, unfortunately. But very excited to dive into the games more so than the transfer window itself. Good to see you, boys.
Yeah, good to have you on. Excited to dive into that game. We have Andy Hoover, my good friend, who is responsible for draining lots of my bank account with sports bets. We can share in the misery of missing bets right, left, and center all weekend long. But how are you doing, my Tottenham friend?
Oh, so can you hear this? This is
yeah.
The Matthias Tell highlight clip tape. We got it edit already on the feed. We are ready to go. I was watching that immediately before I hopped in here. I'm doing pretty good. Best week as a Spurs fan I've had in a very long time. Everything else outside of football is going great. Specifically, though, man, it feels good to have hope for something. So it's an exciting day for me. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Spurs did some business. Kind of crazy to say, but they did it. Beat out Manchester United to a signature. Weird times that we're living in 2025, which brings me to my United brother, last but certainly not least, Mr. Connor Sindobri. While he may not have a lot of good things to say about Manchester United, he is the only one on this podcast that has Division I soccer experience. So you know what? He knows more ball than the rest of us. So whatever. Connor, how are you feeling today, bro?
What's going on, fellas? It's another weekend. I've just accepted that I'm basically in a toxic relationship with a football club. Except the red flags is just the color red, and instead of gaslighting, it's just our board pretending they're going to do stuff for the 50th year in a row. But here I am. Instead of historic moments, we just lose to mid-table clubs week in and week out. Didn't do anything in the transfer window, but we're here, fellas. Still going to shoot my shot and do a little banter. Going to talk shit on Butch for not being here and saying they're going to win the league. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. We have a lot to talk about. But the very first place that we have to start is the transfer deadline day and really the whole month of January. Let's talk transfers. And I feel like if we're going to talk transfers in the Premier League, the only team we can start off is Aston Villa. I don't know if there's been a team out there that's done as much business in the January transfer window and has done as much good business in the January transfer window. I just have a couple of the names that they brought in. Daniel Malen from Borussia Dortmund, Marcus Rashford on loan, Marco Asensio from PSG on loan, a late deal for Disasi from Chelsea, which I'm sure Nick is ecstatic about. But don't forget that they also did some massive business on the outgoing. We had John Duran transferring for 77 million euros, Jaden Philogene for 23 million, Diego Carlos for 10 million, Buendia on loan. There's just a lot going on in Aston Villa. So at the end of the window here, where do you all see Villa going from here?
I think the big thing was just the fact that I don't think we see necessarily this much movement if they don't qualify for the round of 16 in the Champions League. They legit have a shot to do some damage in Europe as well as try to finish top four. And I think this was them just being we're going to take a few, I think that Rashford and Asensio are especially a little bit risky in terms of you don't know what they're going to be, but I think that they can afford to do that right now. Like they can afford to take the risk and try to go for top 4 and see if they can't do some damage in the Champions League with two, very experienced players in Europe. And it's kind of like, let's see what happens. And the Sassy, not so much, but at the same time, he's an okay center back that may be able to help him. I think I said in the text, I think they've had the best transfer window out of all of us, but mainly just because they actually did something.
Right. Yeah, they went out and got a lot of depth.
Yeah. You're bang on about the going to this round of 16 for the Champions League, but like they're doing things that I think we would wish all of our clubs did, is where we're doing and we're in these competitions and there's actually a chance to like go far in them. They're bringing in legs at the end of the day, like whether or not Rashford turns into a 15-goal star, and Marco Asensio's pretty old too, if I'm not mistaken. Like I don't think they're super high risk. I think at the end of the day, they're guys that they can sub on. They're guys that can start Premier League games. And they've just got some rotation now. They definitely started to get a little leggy, and I want to say it was out of their last 4 games the week after the Champions League, they'd only gotten a point from 4 matches. So like that type of thing happens to teams, like especially a Villa who aren't Man City and perennially in all of these competitions. They're actually supporting themselves for once, which is just good business.
Yeah, good business all around. And you feel like you got like some really solid depth players in different positions. You even track it back to the summer transfer window. They brought in guys all along the defensive line that can play significant minutes. But they also sent out some players on loan too, guys that they knew were not going to be part of the system. So fair play to Villa. And what scares me a little bit, and Winks, maybe not so much for you with the position that Arsenal are in, but certainly for Spurs and for United, take the Champions League out of it. Obviously, like they're in that competition. We are not, our 2 teams. But even just for the league, the rest of the year, you added attacking players who can make a difference off the bench. And like both of our teams, like we don't want to see that from a rival club. So I think that Manchester United and Spurs should be a little bit worried about Villa's window that they had. But I mean, this lead us straight into Arsenal. I mean, Arsenal, don't get me wrong, I don't think that there was any business that Arsenal did, outgoing or incoming. So, Winks, I know that you mentioned that you're a little bit somber with not making any movement, but Aston Villa directly impacted that one with a big snub for Ollie Watkins.
Yeah. No, and I mean, fair play to them. That's that's partially what any of our clubs would get for trying to do something so last minute like that. So obviously that's super frustrating to read about that. Fabrizio tweets out 1 minute that we put in a bid and then it's rejected not 7 minutes later, I think it was. So that blows, especially with sort of as we got closer to the January transfer window, kind of all the rumors that were swirling between Benjamin Sesko, Ollie Watkins, Gayorkis, Isak,
what was your guys' bid for? Like, what was the price? What was the price?
I think 60 mil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't know
and they
if
got
that
what
was
for Duran?
don't know
70
if that
something?
was
77.
Yeah.
77.
Don't know if that was euros or millions, but regardless, yeah, so that sucks. We did loan out 2 guys, Marquinhos being one of them. The other guy I didn't know in particular. Both young guys that wouldn't have necessarily even made it on our bench for any game. And yeah, so we did not sign a soul. I think as far as depth is concerned, this is one of those years that I feel in a more comfortable spot from a depth perspective, especially as we're projected to get a lot of guys fully fit and back from injury towards the end of this month. But outside of that, we talked about it so many times, like signing a striker was the only thing that we needed. And obviously there were rumors about us signing other positional players too, but that could have been just as true as any of these rumors about speaking to agents and teams about some of these other guys. And really the only attempt at it was that Ollie Watkins bid. But again, because it was so late in the window and felt desperate to an extent, would have been a phenomenal ad. I'm a huge Ollie Watkins fan, but
I think that wins you guys the league, as crazy as that sounds.
Totally.
I really do.
I think that that's such a big miss. And what I don't understand is exactly what you just said of like you made the bid pretty late in the window.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you watch your club, and this isn't just an Arsenal thing. This is a United thing, Spurs thing. Like, I don't understand how you watch your club as the directors of the club for months, and you see the gaps, you see where there's reinforcements that are needed, and you're not ready to go January 1. Like, you're not ready to go immediately once the window opens. We do the same thing in the summer too. Like, you don't see any movement until like the last week of July, and like, shit doesn't make any sense.
From a negotiation perspective, though, it's like that. It makes it easier in some cases to be like, Wolves and Kevin Danso and the Spurs situation. Wolves did the hard work, negotiated the deal, medical was booked. Spurs found out what the terms were, offered a little bit better, guy accepted. So I think from a sporting director perspective, and I'm not defending it because in my case, we haven't had a fit back line the entire year. Like we threw out a fishing reel bid for Mark Gahey with Crystal Palace for $70 million. Don't know where that number came from at all.
For real, that would have been crazy.
But like, that's good business. You know what I mean? Like, whether or not he becomes the next, greatest center back in the world, I can't say. But it's like that was the type of thing that I would have liked to see pretty early on in the window, especially considering the issues with defenders that we already have. So then for them to like do that day before the transfer window closes is almost just a slap in the face. Like, one, didn't know we had that much money. And two, like, you knew that there were this many issues on the back line. So totally. It's super, and like, we're all kind of in the same boat on that one. My team's the only team that actually like pulled off one or two of those late window moves, but like, it's just that's negligent.
That's the interesting piece, because you talked about how in some cases like a late bid is beneficial, but I think from my perspective, in a lot of cases, like if you're going to make at least in our case, if you're going to make a bid for a team's number one striker and they don't have a clear backup or plans to sign someone else, like the bid just it's the easiest no ever, because you're not giving Aston Villa enough time to, scramble and make an offer for somebody to even comp what Ollie's, projections are, or, try and come close to it. But we bid for, one of the top 2-3 players on that Aston Villa side last minute, and they say no so easy because they don't, like I said, they don't have the time to.
And that shouldn't be any of our clubs.
No.
Like MO.
I think in our case, not to make excuses, but like I mentioned it a couple pods ago that we don't have a sporting director, obviously, and that the board is making the decisions. So and it's not Arteta, so there has to be something in that realm that maybe they're just, maybe all of these rumors were just rumors outside of this bid and it was just a desperation bid, but maybe they're like, we don't want to make these moves until we have someone in that seat to sort of direct our future in that way.
I even still, it just doesn't make sense to me. So like, if you want Ollie Watkins, right? I have to imagine that they knew that going into January. Why not make a bid like 60 million the very first week of January? And if Villa decline it, like, okay, whatever. And you just say, hey, our bid is 60 million. It's here for you. And then as the window gets closer to ending, like maybe Villa get a little like, hey, I want to make that. Or you make that bid early before John Duran goes to Saudi. What is he? The Saudi league? Before he goes there, because then they might say, like we might make that move for 60 million for a 29-year-old Ollie Watkins because we have this young up and coming player.
You take the 77 mil you got from John Duran and reinvest it elsewhere and then back yourself. I completely agree. And I think really this was the January window that I would imagine Arsenal fans were like, we're one piece away. Like Dobe said, we're one piece away. But without that sporting director, like, dude, it was just never going to happen.
I also think there's the point, too, where it's, do you want to invest that amount of money in a 29-year-old striker and then be committed to him versus go in the summer when the striker market is going. I mean, there's going to be. I mean, Isak you could go after, Gokras you could go after, Sesko you could actually go after. Like I think that's the double-edged
Cunha,
sword.
you go after.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to say.
It's the frustrated part for Arsenal fans because literally you are that one piece away. But at the same time, do you want to go invest the money for a 29-year-old Ollie Watkins and then see an Isak go somewhere else, see a Gokras go somewhere else, see a Sesko go somewhere else that could be your striker for the next 10 years versus go for Ollie Watkins now, who 29 years old, there's no guarantee that he's going to be what he is in 2-3 years, you know?
Well, at a point in our club where we haven't, won the Premier League in 20 years and or won a major trophy, in the last couple, it's almost one of those things that like we're not a club that like doesn't have a lot of money. Like I know we like all of our clubs have the money knowing our ownership. It's just like do they want to spend it in one window, even if he is only here for 2 years, to win that title that all of us have been,
I will say,
wanting
dude,
the club
I'm
to
mad
win
as
for so long.
hell at United for I get why we didn't. I'm mad as hell for us not doing anything just to keep us in the Europa League, like / get back in the top half. I can't even imagine if if United was in second right now, being one piece away from a title, and the board didn't do anything. I would be so
livid.
fucking mad.
But what I don't understand is like if it's Ollie Watkins is the guy that is the one piece away, and you're throwing 60 at him, like
He's 29
pay
though.
for it,
yeah.
overpay
But what
for it.
I'm saying is like, why not? If you are worried about the the 29 thing, or if it's Gyökeres, or if it's Isak, if it's whatever, why not put a bid in for a player like that? It's just like, I don't know. Like to me, what it reminded me of is like when Arsenal made a bid for Mudryk, and then like it got declined, and they were like, well, we tried, and then they moved on. And
I'm okay how that one worked
well,
out.
totally. You're never going to look back.
But the
and
thing
be
is,
like,
it does open the door to other teams knowing that they may be potentially willing to. I
Yeah,
mean,
like
it's the same thing with
they
Tell
see we
going on
deny
for the past
60,
week. Yeah,
and another club could have easily been like, all right, 70 or 65, whatever, and
yeah, I don't know. I just think it's odd from
not
the
odd,
outside looking
it's
in,
fucking
but
annoying.
from the outside, yeah, looking in, being like, how are you going to make a $60 million bid, and that be the only bid you send of any player, and not even like a rebuttal or like a negotiation or anything like that? It's just like, well, okay, that's it, like literally reminds me of, and we can move on to Tottenham with this, but like it reminds me a little bit of Daniel Levy's philosophy of like, I mean, fucking A, I don't know how he pulled off the Tell deal, but like how many times have we been going back and forth over the last 4 days of like he was going to give him the Daniel Levy special of flying out to Munich and then losing the negotiation in Munich. So I don't know why clubs operate the way that they do. I mean, I am in no position to talk as a Manchester United fan about transfers, but Tottenham, let's talk with you, Hoover, about your active January, surprisingly.
So it's interesting that you say that because all of our deals are the same. Like every single one of them are the same. Kevin Danso, loan buy obligation. Cudi Romero, loan buy obligation. Matthias Tell, loan buy obligation. Like you can look at a ton of players
by option, because obligation means you're required to buy.
I think Romero was an obligation, and then I think Danso's an obligation. Mattel's an option. But like that's just always how they've done business. He likes to test drive the cars before he actually buys them, which is in some cases smart, and I think in this specific window was the play. But it's also really aggravating. Like we talk about it all the time. Like, dude, go buy the top players, but pay the wages. We're not paying the wages. These types of things are the aggravating part. But at the end of the day, it was cool to get a couple incomings. But at the same time, it was so late that we're seeing Mickey might have had a setback in his recovery. He may not be available for Thursday. Dragishin just tore his ACL on last Thursday.
Crazy,
so he's out
bro.
for the season.
Crazy.
Like, none of that is a concern. Well, obviously it's a concern, but none of it's as big of a concern if you're doing this business in the beginning of the window. Like, we dropped multiple points from multiple games. where if you have reinforcements, you may not actually drop those points in January. Like, it has a
Right.
direct reflect on the time period that you get these guys in. So I'm gassed about the Tell deal, and I think even if this was a straight loan situation and there was never an option that he was going to sign permanently, I would still be excited. With
What
how
was
many
what was the option figure? Like, did they say the
40,
number?
45.
It's not bad.
It's not bad, and we just needed some legs, man. We
Yeah,
needed
totally.
legs and we needed players, and I do think from a Bayern perspective, Spurs were probably a little bit more attractive than United, just because they play a high press, high speed, direct style of play, and he's going to play all the time. Like, we're actually just that short of attackers, and I know you guys are too. But he's not going to play in a wing back role. He could maybe play in one of those, combined tens, and then, he'd probably start as striker too. But, I think the versatility that he has fit us a little bit better in his ability to be on the pitch more often, and he's going to get competitive minutes. So even if it was just a loan, the buy option was unexpected and extremely welcome. I'm not, going to get my hopes up or anything about that, but dude, for 6 months, I'm going to be so gassed to watch this kid. So
Yeah.
that was great. Everything I've read on Kevin Danso's been really solid. Has been playing in a high press system recently under Will Still, actually.
Will Still, baby.
Yeah, the football manager.
Football manager legend, bro.
Yeah. And he's, apparently just an absolute physical animal, aerial dominant, decent passer, really good progressive carrier, not super amazing one-on-one from what I've read, but, at the end of the day, it's a tried and true center back who has Champions League experience, able to just immediately slot in the back line. So, gassed about the two signings. At the end of it, had I known that Mickey and Radu were going to be out for the season, I would have been happy with Disasi, again, as legs. Like, no one was really all that excited about him. Like, we didn't want him. Chelsea didn't want him. Like, whatever, brother. That's not that big of a deal. But it would have been good to, have someone who's semi-competent in the position. But, it just comes down to how late everything happened. I think Tell's a great grab. We forget Kinski, the keeper, was a really good grab too. I think 12 mil from Belgrade, and three positions that needed addressed. So it's cool from that. I'm still not giving it more than a 4 out of 10, just because of how the way that how many issues we have right now. Three guys coming in aren't solving all of them. They're putting really solid band-aids on, I think, but. Would have loved another center back, probably some sort of defensive mid or someone to give, Bentancur and those guys some rotation. I can sit here and pull up the wish list all day long, but at the end of the day, 3 players came in the door in a January window for Spurs, and that's like
unheard of.
Not a very common thing that happens to us. So I'm excited for the guys to come in. I'm excited to get some help. I'm excited to see them play. Still Levy out till it's backwards. Levy got rejected face to face from Matthias Tell, and only switched over.
I'm so fucking confused.
Only switched over because apparently he had an hour-long phone call this morning with Ange Postecoglou. Like,
Insane.
That is apparently all that it took. So he rejected Levy to his face, and then listened to the Australian tell him what the plans were, and was like, "Yeah, you're right. Fuck that bald prick." But you, man, I'm in on you.
What'd you guys offer for him? Straight transfer. Was it 60?
60, I think is what it was.
Which was accepted.
Yeah, that was he saw Levy and was like, I'm not going permanent, dude. Fuck that guy.
Dude,
he talked to Ange, he's like, nah, I'll come for 6 months.
I think the dapping up in the locker room is gonna be real funny with Tell and Daniel Levy. Like, I think if they cross paths, it's gonna be so funny.
Bro, I love that already. I love that he doesn't fuck with that guy like everyone else. But and again, it's just we just keep coming back to Ange, man. Like these guys, he's got a little bit of pull for being a team in 14th in the league. Like, there's a little bit of pull there, and I think a lot of people have seen the Spurs that beat City 4-0, and the Spurs that were top of the league last September, October, the early things that were obviously never going to stick around for good, but like everyone's seen how good Spurs can be. We haven't had a fit back line and since he started. A lot of other issues across the pitch, but like there's a world. I'm just telling you, like the fact that he's still got this support from the fan base being where he's at right now in the league is telling.
Yeah.
Like we all want him to succeed so bad.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear you say also that like Tell's going to get some good playing time because you have so many injuries. We have four attackers at Manchester United, and that's it. Like that's not even with injuries. It's just we only have four.
Just a couple guys.
Yeah, just a couple guys. But it is a little bit surprising, to be honest with you. It's a little bit surprising for me to hear you say 4 out of 10 for your window, just knowing the history that Spurs have had. Would you feel differently if because I believe that Danzo is also a loan with an option?
Yeah, I don't. I'm pretty sure the option's nailed on. Like I think it's one of those
like an
deferred
obligation
payments
thing?
type thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you feel differently if those 3 were permanent?
Not considerably different. I think Tell is the one that you look at that's like if we nailed him down permanent, 60 mil for 5 years.
Huge.
Like gassed. I think there's an incredible future for the guy. And, Donzo's 25, so I think there's some really, really good years that he may be able to have too. He's a homegrown talent too, which I know Daniel Levy was just frothing at the mouth for to not have to, waste up an international spot. Yeah, I don't think I would feel too differently. It's, the situation we're in. You take the summer to plan for the future. You take January to work on what's happening right now. And we needed another defender. Like at the end of the day, I think you bring in Disasi, maybe pops to a 6, but like there's just not a lot of willingness to say this was great because of the negligence that it took 30 days in the first place to even get to where we are right now.
Yeah.
Like the Mark Gahey bid was just straight up a slap in the face.
Dude, that was the craziest thing.
No one knew that we had money. No one knew that was on the books. Now it's coming out. Well, they're going to try again in the summer. Like that was the plan for them to tell it. That was the plan the whole time. It was just a smoke screen, as the football Twitter likes to call it. But no, look, it's weird being sitting here being happy about it. I think it was because literally last week I said we were not going to do a damn thing in the transfer window.
Very
and
true.
Now we've got 2 players, one extremely promising in positions that we need. So I'm happier than I was last week. The 0 out of 10 has jumped to 4, but I still just am, the negligence to let players continue go down and get hurt through the month of January when the window was already open. That's just unforgivable and aggravating.
Don't get it either, man. Don't get it either. Speaking of don't get it, Manchester United, Dobes. Manchester United, our club, technically made 3 signings this window. Diego Leon, I think Diego's his first name.
He's in Paraguay.
From Paraguay, 17 years old. Aiden Heaven, coming over from Arsenal's U21 academy, and then Patrick Dorgu, who I feel like we've been hearing about him for almost 2 months now. 20-year-old Danish international. But the real big story is Rashford on loan, Antony on loan, leaving us with 4 attackers. What do you make of the guys that we brought in, the age profile, and kind of what the back half of the season means for Manchester United now?
I think a big way to look at sort of the United transfer window is it's almost twofold in the way that we were kind of subject to Rashford in terms of whatever was going to happen in terms of if we're going to go get somebody, if we weren't, we're kind of subject to if and who and when Rashford was going to go to somebody. And it took up until 2 days before the window for him to go to Villa. I will say this now. I want Villa to win the Champions League. I still love Marcus. I hope he can find his form again at Aston Villa. Like I really, really, really want him to succeed and do well. And the same honestly goes with Anthony. And part of that is like genuine with Rashford. And then with Anthony, it's more so go to Betis, ball dude. So when we want to sell you in the summer, like we can actually make a profit on you. And I think that's kind of the same thing with Rashford a little bit. There is an option to buy for 40 million, but if he goes and tears up the Champions League and tears up the Prem, like he's only going to drive his price tag up. Malacia, I did see this after. I don't know if it's official, but I do know he was in He was in the
PSV.
Netherlands. He was going to sign for PSV. He's another one that went out. So I'm honestly, I'm happy with the outgoings. I think in terms of this is the first stage for us setting us up to be able to, one, make some money from them in the summer. And I also think it shows the three players that that is their future. That Rashford was never going to be able to come back at Manchester United based off the relationship with Amorim. Anthony was never going to be able to come back at Manchester United just in terms of the quality of a player he is and what he's done here. Malacia, you got to feel for him a little bit just in terms of the injury, and he's never really going to be able to come back to that form. And it also doesn't fit the profile in terms of what we need out of a wing back for United. In terms of bringing in Dorgu, I'm extremely excited about him. We kind of touched on him a little bit last week. I'm just excited in the fact that he's young, he's athletic, he's the type of profile that Amorim loves in terms of that wing back. And it's the one position that we desperately needed to bring in this window. I do feel for the kid a little bit because that we've been so on this wingback train. Like, he's raw. Like, I'll be very honest, he's raw. He deserves some time to develop. He's not really going to get that, to be honest with you. He's going to have to come in and be a big piece for us here just based off of the fact that we didn't get two. Aiden Haven, I don't necessarily know a ton about, but just we'll talk about it when we get to the Palace game. But I always love getting talents from Arsenal, just that they reject Arsenal to come to a bigger club. So good for him. But he's also another one that, based off of Lissandra Martinez injury, is probably going to just become a first-team player instantly. So yeah, and then Diego Leon is another one of those young kids. It's a young profile. If you look at sort of top to bottom, United has 10 to 15 of those players between like the 18 to 22 age range that are willing to, or that we're looking to build upon, which I do. I drastically love that approach. But at the same time, we didn't necessarily do enough within this window to help us now. And I think that's the biggest disappointment is we waited to the end of window to try to do anything. I'm not necessarily like on the side of a lot of the fan base that is like depressed and disappointed of this Tell signing. Like, I don't mind us not spending $5 million. I mean, he's got 12 goals in 60 games for Bayern. He may end up being a world beater. He may end up being a great player. He may end up not being. And so I think that's one of those where I'm not necessarily sad that we didn't sign anybody. I more so feel for Amorim and just the fact that we didn't do anything. He literally has 4 attackers. He has Xerxes and Haaland who haven't been able to score necessarily. He has Garnacho, who I love, and he has Ahmad, who I love. Both, again, young players that it's very tough to be like, hey, guys, you're only attacking options for the next 4 months. So I don't know. I also think that it's one to look at that a lot of the situation that we are currently in now has been built over the past summers and Januaries and summers to where none of this is on Amorim. I think almost I'm not necessarily a fan of Ineos yet, but I also think a lot of this isn't on Ineos as well. I think that they didn't want to bring players in that didn't necessarily fit the mold, fit the age profile that would fit with Amorim's system. But at the same time, I think that United fans are more so looking for that signing to kind of give us hope in the Europa League, give us a chance to win the FA Cup, maybe get us back in the top half of the Prem table. But we didn't make a panic buy, and some of those panic buys are kind of the reason we're in this position anyway. So overall, I'd probably give the window similar to Hoove, maybe a 4, if not a 3, just because I really didn't expect much. I think that there's always more buzz around Man United just because it does get the Fabrizio clicks, it gets the Pletty goal clicks, it gets the buzz going. I'd probably give it a 4 or 3 just because we did bring in a wingback that I do think could be a wingback that we could actually build on for the future.
Yeah, my big worry with the lack of incomings is similar to what every single one of us would say about our teams is we're an X person injury away from being really fucked. All of us can say that with Asaka and Odegaard, whoever else for Spurs that's still even healthy. I don't even know who's still healthy over there, but you look at like a Garnacho or a Bruno or an Ahmad injury sometime over the next 4 months, and United is fucked from an attacking perspective. And what we're doing right now is we're banking on Kobe Mainu becoming one of those 10s and playing significant minutes there. We're also banking on Mason Mount coming back and playing significant minutes. We're banking now with Lissandra Martinez out for the rest of the season. We're banking on Luke Shaw coming back and playing significant minutes. So I don't know. I just think that it's really in my personal opinion, as a Manchester United fan, it's really hard for me to know what to think or what to believe or what to feel, because you see so much shit thrown around about like the Glazers still doing a lot of things behind the scenes, Ineos still doing some things behind the scenes. Like you just don't really know what to trust as a fan, and all you can really see is what's going on the pitch, which we'll get to with.
I will say the one thing with United is the fact that we need to lean on Carrington, and we're going to have to. Amorim came in and said that there was going to be a storm because of when he came in. We're not going to look at the profile of players. It's going to be an up and down rest of the season. We may get through in the cup competition. We may get a good draw in the Europa League. My big thing is if I see the young guys come up and I see Xerxes, Haaland just work their dicks off and like care for the badge and play for the badge, like I'll support them, win, lose, or draw, and just know that the league is already written off and we're looking to the summer, you know?
Yeah, which is tough because, as we all understand, if you're not qualifying for big competitions, if you're not in Europe at all, if you don't get top 8 or top 7 or whatever it is, attracting top talent's going to be...
I don't think that's going to be a problem, but...
I don't know. You just don't know, man. It's just these injuries. I didn't expect going into the game yesterday that we were going to be down Lissandra Martinez for the rest of the season. So you just don't know how it's going to go. But let's talk about some of those fixtures that we saw over the weekend. Arsenal takes the headlines here this weekend. The big game, Arsenal against City, is one that, for at least for the last couple of years, people have been looking forward to a lot. And Arsenal have typically played the little brother role in that relationship, and the roles couldn't have been further reversed on this one. So a dominating 5-1 victory for the North Londoners. Lucas Winkleman, how did that feel?
He's making Haaland's point.
I felt so damn good. What's Haaland's point?
Stay humble.
Yeah. No, I think that shut him up to an extent, and I know that he was pointing at his gold Premier League badge at the end of it. But yeah, outside of the shithousery, which was incredible to watch, especially the song that Arsenal fans were chanting at the game. It was something. I just watched a video earlier. It was like it was something about staying humble, use C word, and it was immaculate. If you guys haven't watched it yet, you should go and try and find a video of it. But
I'm sure City fans responded with like, we know what you've done. We know what you've done.
Yeah, I don't know.
Premier League footballer in his 30s. We know what you've done. Goes both ways.
But what a game though. I know all you guys watched it. Like even if City aren't at the top of their game, I think we can all agree that it's still Manchester City, and that like they can kind of sort of turn it on.
Totally.
Anytime they want to, or they can at least try to. And I think that we came in with the perfect game plan. I thought that, pressing them in the way that we did as early as we did was super crucial. Declan Rice had a monstrous game, was the clear man of the match for me. And he looked particularly energized in the midfield from the start of the match, and we saw it at the very beginning. Knocking the ball out as they tried to rotate it around the back, and then assisting both Haaland graduates actually.
Bro, what the fuck was City doing So I got to the game. I turned on the game in like the 5th minute, so I missed the goal, saw the replay. There was like 3 other passes that could have been played other than the pass that they tried to play, which led to the turnover, which led to the goal. What you just said is so fascinating, because for the first time in several years, you just said, but at the same time, it's City and they can always turn it on when they want to. This is the first year where I'm like, I actually don't think that they can turn it on like that, like they used to. I think their legs are catching up with them. The age is catching up with them. I think Kevin De Bruyne not playing more than 25 minutes a game makes no sense, but like they don't have that guy to make it tick. And so like, I think City really is like just making stupid fucking decisions, and they flirted with disaster, and they got fucked on for the whole game.
That they did, and that was something that I was going to touch on. Was like I think that the youth piece to our team was a clear standout too. I thought especially the younger players on our team, Lewis Skelly being one of them. played exceptional, and I think that was a big difference because they did look uncharacteristically sloppy in possession in general, but especially like in their own half. But even more so, again, I think tactically we just played them really well. Like the press was super important. Defensively, we were super narrow the whole game and didn't really allow them to play up the middle. And again, I think not having Kevin De Bruyne in the middle, you miss a lot of that ability to build up through the middle in general. But I think that
ruining my fantasy team too.
Yeah,
Absolutely
sorry, brother.
ruining it.
What
It had to come to an end at some point, and I'm glad
Yeah,
that
dude,
you
first
drafting
round.
him in fantasy was
Ridiculous.
what
I just don't
started
think
to
anyone
cause it.
expected that this season. Like I would have taken. I think you drafted before me, like the spot before me. I would have taken Kevin De Bruyne in
Yeah.
the first round too.
yeah,
But like
bro.
he
I
just
don't
hasn't
get it.
played.
It's the same thing with James Madison and Spurs and some of his rotation. Like,
Totally.
I actually like a lot of times these big players. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the biggest in the world. Like, there's a story that comes out, and it's like we're managing his minutes, or we had a falling out in the dressing room. He's working on getting back to it, or he took a knock. Like, none of that's come out. There's not been one conversation piece as to why he's not playing. So, it's so odd to me.
So
Yeah. But no, that was a super enjoyable watch, and I think a statement game too. After what was it, the week or two before City beat Chelsea 2 or 3-1, and so us, at home making that sort of statement game, I think was big, despite not signing a 9. Kai Havertz still scoring in that game, and everybody's immediate. I see stuff on Twitter like, oh, we don't need one anymore. He's still there, and I'm like, guys,
delusional.
Guys, you're making me look bad. Like, yeah, we do.
What I want to give Arsenal credit for is I feel like this is certainly the first time against City that you can say this factually, but I feel like sometimes this happens, but they smell blood in the water. It was a really close game for a while, but once they put in, I think their third, they scored the third, fourth, and fifth like right away, and they killed the game off. I think that how many times have we been on here criticizing all of our teams for not killing a team off, and you got to do it if you're really going to cement your position in a game. So I want to give Arsenal their flowers for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think even more important to that note was that after City did score, we scored
right away.
So like putting them away at the end of the game, super important. But I think even more important was like stopping their momentum, as quickly as we could.
Yeah, and the other thing was David Raya's 2
incredible.
Dude,
he's been so good. Like, I don't think we talk about him enough because I'm specifically too busy talking about our problems up front. Plus the Saka injury and Odegaard injury, but yeah, I don't think he gets enough credit.
It's been massive.
All season. Very, very few mistakes, like none that I can think of off the top of my head. So, yeah, man, super happy with that. And then obviously beating Girona earlier in the week. I know we'll talk Champions League football, but yeah, I think a special week for the club.
I will say I'm not one. I'm a Erling Haaland hater, and I do think that he was shocking that entire game. Besides the goal, I hate to defend him, but like the Arsenal reaction is exactly why he's right. Like I'm almost positive that Kevin De Bruyne might have more trophies than Lewis Skelly has appearances. Like it has to be close. It has to be close. So I do enjoy the fact that it's like one of the few games that I think that we've seen though where there is that like extra buzz. Like, and I do think it's because of the Gabriel Haaland thing in the first game. Like
also the past couple of years of us finishing just below them too.
Well,
like
that's why he says be humble though. You guys haven't won anything. Like
you're
that's
right.
Why he's saying
you're right.
That.
So yes, and I get that, but it's similar to like to me it's similar to when a player scores against a team or they win against a team that they should win, but like it's important for their season. And like you can't just expect these guys playing in the best league in the world not to celebrate scoring. And if shithousery is involved in that, which there's gonna be, like so be it. But like if you're gonna shit pump a 3 or however many was it 3 straight Premier League title team, like I would go crazy too, especially like knowing how important that those 3 points were in this title race. So like I get it, but
we also had Arsenal
gonna
fans comparing the amount of minutes that Ethan Nwaneri to Lionel Messi and Cristiano
dude,
Ronaldo.
I saw that.
Like that's the be humble aspect of it.
I will never throw you into that group of Arsenal
fans.
never. You're
not.
Never.
But I do think that's where the be humble comes from. Is
there's
that group of fans?
Always the extremes, and that unfortunately that we all have to deal with. But
absolutely insane. Tottenham pulled away with a big old W on Sunday morning. Was thrilled for you. Could not say the same with my club, but Hoover, I know that you needed that victory so badly. How good did it feel?
48 days, Lance. What were you doing? What were you doing 48 days ago? I don't remember what I was doing.
No idea.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. That was the last time we won in the Premier League. That's insane.
That's insane.
That's insane.
Welcome to your future, Tell.
Dude, yeah, we had to let them know that, hey man, look at all these cup wins we have though. Don't forget about those. I have never been so excited in my entire life to watch a low block. We sat in a low block, dude. It was awesome. We were just hoofing balls to Richarlison. Like it felt right. Obviously that's not really Ange, but again, he's adapting, folks. So let's tell that to Sky Sports. They don't know anything. It was a sit back, lock in against one of the best scoring home sides in the league in Brentford and one of the strongest at home in Brentford. And there was going to be a lot of pressure. There were going to be a lot of shots. It was going to be, sit down, hunker in. But I don't necessarily think he abandoned his principles. Like, with the limited squad and who we had available, a couple key subs were good decisions. But then, the second goal we scored, every player on the field touched the ball. Like, It was a ball that was hoofed up Dane Scarlett. He brought it down, and he made the play start, So it's cool to be able to acknowledge that you're maybe getting flexible and adjusting how you play day to day, definitely based on who you have available and the team that you're up against. But he's also not, throwing away his ideals. Like, it was a beautiful move from wing to center midfielders to center back to the keeper, back to the center back. Archie Gray makes a great little run, something that I know Radu Dragic couldn't have done. Finds
he's so good.
We love Archie Gray, bro.
I love Archie Gray.
I'm telling you, man, the kid is unbelievable, and it sounds like he's already a leader in the locker room. He's 18. Like, it's just like it's cool to be a part of his progression. And Ange said it too. Ange was like, I'm just so excited that I get to be a part of his, growth and journey as a footballer. And he's like, and if someone else is here in 3 years reaping the benefits, he's like, I'm not going to be happy about it. Like, he's like, I want to make sure that I'm in and around what he's doing for forever, because I think he's seeing that the kid's just special. And he's played 2 games in his natural position as a 6. Like, we're crediting him and praising him for being like an emergency center back, and he smashed it. Ben Davies, I mean, I can't believe I'm still talking about the guy in 2025, the year of our Lord. But he's one of those club guys. He's having himself a little bit of a Harry Maguire-esque, I wouldn't say remontada by any means, but he's serving the club in ways that we've never needed worse. I thought Bentancur was great. Sarr had a great run through the middle to finish off the move. It was just like the biggest breath of fresh air I've ever felt. Like, a clear difference in the rest of my day. I got up, went to the grocery store, came back, made breakfast, got to the gym. What's next? You know what I mean? It really did change the outlook of my day. So, they're not always going to be pretty. And especially for a team that was formerly 17th, now 14th, with, a makeshift back line and nobody, other reinforcements to come in. It was so nice. And even if Sonny's not going to be the lethal finisher that he once was, he's still a pretty important piece of the team. You know,
Totally.
He set up it was a beautiful pass to Sarr through ball for the goal. He's had dangerous delivery after dangerous delivery on corners. It's nice to see him contributing as a captain more so, I think, now than as your, starlet winger. So it just, look, you got to bottle these moments when you get them because they don't last forever. And I'm absolutely buzzing after beating 11th place Brentford. Like, sometimes you find yourself in your football fandom,
A
and
great
this is where
Brentford
you're at.
team, though.
A great Brentford team. And I do think, too, at the end of the day, man, this has been one of the most competitive top to bottom years that I've seen in the Premier League ever. For the first time in a long time, we have an actual race for the title. We've got Nottingham Forest sitting fourth, who are absolutely smashing it. But at the same time, they get wrung out to dry 7-1 by Bournemouth. Yep. It's just nothing is set in stone this year, which is enjoyable from a neutral and something that I think I have to acknowledge more as I watch Spurs fall down the table. We've had injury crisis, plenty throughout my time as a fan. This one's been the worst. It's also had the worst, retribution. Like it's just ruined us because everyone else has quality on the pitch that can win whoever they play in any moment. Like we lost to Ipswich, brother. Like I wouldn't have put any amount of money on that ever.
Yeah.
So take them when you get them. 3 points is insane. So good to feel that again. Not be sitting in a couple spots above relegation spots. Like everyone can breathe a little. It's going to be great. You're in a semifinal second leg on Thursday. There's excitement. Still think we could get better. Definitely not doubling down on the fact that we're going home, with a winner to the final. But we're in it. It's going to have to be a similar performance. You're going to button up against Liverpool. We're going to want to go for it and hope you catch a couple counters. And, that's what you bank on. Matthias Tell's probably going to play, and so is Kevin Danso.
Sure.
So, I have absolutely no idea what to expect out of them or out of that game. But
that's at Anfield too. Fuck.
Which made that one goal, 1-0, result at Spurs so much more of a bigger deal. I would have took 0-0 at Spurs. I was like, all right, let's just take our chances. But up one is huge. In the context of that, you don't have to win, which is great. Angie's going to want to win, and that's just how it is. But it gives you just a teeny bit of cushion to look, man. I'll if we go to pens, so be it. We go to pens, and I'm feeling pretty okay about that run, given the availability of the squad. So, just seriously, just a genuine breath of fresh air, and I would like to feel that more often. So hopefully that can continue against you guys. That'd be sweet.
It would be something, wouldn't it? It would be something.
I'm not sure you guys have beaten us for 3 years. Maybe check the tape on that, but
we haven't beat many teams for 3 years.
Written in the stars that Tell's going to score, probably score 2, then he may get hurt or something like that. But he's definitely going to score 2.
90th minute winner, pulls his hamstring in the celebration. Classic.
Unbelievable. Dubs, I want to hear your thoughts on the 2-0 loss to Crystal Palace. There's a lot of thoughts coming out of this game. A lot of dejected moments over here on my side of the camera. But how are you feeling about this result?
Honestly, I texted you and Hoove. I think the big, and we talked about it earlier, I think the worst outcome, even worse than us losing, is Lissandra Martinez out for, it sounds like it's an ACL. There was rumors that it may be part of an MCL. So you say minimum 6, maximum 8, 9 months, which makes him back mid-September, October. And he's been, I've said this, I don't think he's the best center back in the world. I think he is, bar none, the best ball-playing center back in the world. And within Emerim's system, you need somebody that can break the lines, break those passes. And he's just been, I mean, he led, you guys saw me send that stat in of all the in possession stats. He leads almost every single category in the Premier League. But when you look at the setup, I think that, Hen, you and I were texting for a while after the game. I think the thing that sucks is, one, we just don't know how to score goals. And so Amorim was forced to kind of look for any different way that we could try something. And it led with him going with Kobe Mainoo as sort of a false 9 approach. And honestly, for the first 10 to 15 minutes is probably the most attacking we've looked in the first 10 to 15 minutes in a very long time. I think we had like 6 or 7 corners in the first 20 minutes, a couple decent chances, none that were actually shots on goal, but we had a ton of different decent chances. And then from there, it was just kind of more the same. We failed to create. I will say that later on in the game, Dean Henderson, what he just tends to do, what he does when he comes back to Old Trafford and makes a couple unbelievable saves. Bruno had a good chance. Ahmad had a good chance that he saved. And then it comes down to we give up a set piece, and credit to Mateta for the finish that he did on the first one. He was at the right place at the right time. And I do think that Lenny Yoro's, just as he gets a little bit bigger and stronger, he's got to be stronger there. And then the second goal was Lissandra Martinez gets injured. Lenny Yoro has to slide into a left-sided center back, which he's never played before. Harry Maguire doesn't step with the rest of the line. No back three continuity, and they're in, and it's a tap in, and that's that. It's just more of the same. We've been a terrible team at home all season long for whatever reason. And I think the biggest thing is, like, you bring on Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund, and they do what?
Nothing.
Like, the game changed a little bit, if you want to say that, when they did come on. And I do think that the mood in Old Trafford changed 100% when Leitch went down. What was it like? It was like the 82nd minute or something like that. It was like borderline. We were starting to push forward for the game a little more, and then he got injured, and then it was we missed a couple big chances, and then that was that. I mean, it's just more of the same. It's just more of the same. Of Diego Dalot is an absolutely terrible left wing back. I don't care if he scored midweek, but he's a terrible left wing back. Mazraoui's not athletic enough. And yeah, I would have rather seen, and this is what I text you, I would have rather seen Amorim go with probably, I think, a little bit of the combination of at least play Ahmad as a right wing back. Like, I think you play Ahmad as a little bit of a right wing back. You put Lenny Yoro as a right center back. You put De Ligt, and then maybe, you know what I mean? There's just, we haven't been able to do anything as a team without wing backs, and it just showed. Yeah. I also do think that Bayendier deserves a run,
totally.
a game.
He's doing good. Yeah.
I think he deserves a game, and especially because I don't think that I didn't text Griff about this. I should have, but I still think that Onana on that header should do better there. Like, I think that he needs to get a hand on it, or if it's going to hit the crossbar, tip the fucking thing over. I don't care what it is, but it's just been the suspect, like the questionable calls where it's like, does the goalie get it or does he not get it? Like, we've been accustomed to De Gea where he just always got it. He may make mistakes, but that's never a goal if De Gea is in there. And I do like Onana with his feet, but at the same time, like, Bayendier's been solid. And, if we don't concede that goal, I do think we go on and win that game somehow. But once you go down 1-0,
Bayendier is so much more commanding in his box.
I agree,
and he might be a little bit worse with his feet, a little bit, but we don't really play like this. Like,
at
build
this point,
up
what are you
stuff.
losing in that? Right.
Yeah,
right.
I would take a guy. Hoover, what do you want? What do you want to show us? You have something queued up. Oh, that's so good.
Every time I see him score, bro, that's what I think of. That specific TikTok. And then, did you see the Palace fans? His signature celebration is to kick the corner flag.
It's great.
And he smoked it, and the entire away section goes boom.
Yeah, that's his thing.
It made me so happy.
Yeah, no, I loved it. It was great. I queued it up for hours. It was awesome. But yeah, dude, I think Bayendier should get a run. I don't know if he will, but honestly, I think Kobe Mainoo in the false nine, like you said, was Amorim's attempt to shake some things up. I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to shake things up. I think Dorgu goes straight into the starting 11 come Friday.
I agree.
Friday we play Leicester City. Have no reason to not play him immediately, but yeah, man, it's just looking pretty bleak. I would just be rocking with Zirkzee as the number 9 and let Dorgu do his thing.
Dude, I'm just sick of planning my entire weekend around these games. Madison on Wednesday leading into the next week. It's like, what are we doing Friday night? What do we got Saturday? It's like, when's United play? All right, we play at 8. Not scheduling anything for Sunday morning. Whole house is clear, and it's just like, why the fuck do I waste my time?
Yeah, well, why do we do this? Because
like,
bro.
Like, why do we do this?
You guys said this a couple weeks ago, and I rebutted that you make me feel the same. So I'm glad we're all here to hold each other's hands.
Oh, it's like, but on
we go
the
through
flip
this.
side, and we'll get there. It's like we're the only unbeaten team in the Champions League in Europe. It's like we got the highest of the highs on fucking Thursdays, and then we shit the bed on Sunday.
If we could play only the big six clubs away and only play on Thursdays,
send us to fucking Romania where we shouldn't be, and we'll be fine. But we got to play at home at Old Trafford in front of the Stretford End. We're fucked.
We're fucked. Let's talk Champions League and Europa League quickly. All of our teams won, which is great. All of our teams took care of business. But I'm curious just to hear y'all's thoughts. We probably won't dive into each game specifically, but what are your thoughts on the new format? Obviously,
Love it.
This was the first time that we saw all 18 fixtures of the Champions League and all Europa League fixtures kick off at the same time. You got to tune into the Golazo show and see so many things simultaneously. Did we like that?
I mean, I have not had that much fun watching football. I don't know about ever. Like World Cup mornings where you just get game after game after game. Amazing. That was unbelievably electric. Mm-hmm. And a gambler's dream. I was a Jude assist away from $300. I multiple other things away from a lot more money too that weren't even close to happening. But it was so much fun, and I loved that they had Thierry Henry and the other character and Micah on the actual Golasso show too. I don't think they loved it. I think they liked their little breaks and not having to be on camera for that long. But it was a lot of fun. They looked like they were Looney Tunes at the end of it, bro. They were just not with the program. The break dancer at the table time and all that stuff. It was interesting to watch from that perspective. But the games, it was so fun. I had one game that mattered, like Man City up on one screen, Golasso show on the other. Love it. I love it. And I loved the Europa version of it, even if, the caliber of the teams aren't the same. But the Jeopardy is, all completely the same. It's like a championship Sunday when everything matters. Like we've not had that in a long time from a football world perspective. I ate it up. Couldn't have gotten better for me.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Qatar World Cup where it was like the Spain-Japan group heading into the final day. You remember how like all four of those teams like completely flipped throughout the 90 minutes? Like that was super fun. I think in the Champions League you had, what was it, like 12 goals in the first like 8 minutes of play. Like I think that was so fun. But I think that was a major win. I didn't know going into this season how I would feel about this new format of the Champions League, but at least in the Europa League, both of our teams, Spurs and United both got pretty favorable, top finishes. So the likelihood of us facing one another wouldn't even be until the semifinals or the final.
I don't think we should play. Yeah, because I think it's the two English teams thing too is part of it.
Yeah, which is cool. Arsenal, y'all took care of business. You got the win that you needed to get. We learned out that Thomas Partey could play in Spain, which might
big
be
deal.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't know if that's quite true, because maybe he can physically be there, but he can still get absolutely walked on their first goal. Rather their only goal. That was one thing. That was one point I was gonna make. Was like great goal, like great one-time finish off that through ball, but like Danjuma just caught our center defensive mid playing right back. Like
I like Danjuma, man.
Yeah, he's solid, but like just caught him standing with his hands
Spurs
in his
legend,
pockets,
right?
And the only thing Raya could do was try and come out and cut off the angle, and it was a great finish too. So he can play there, but can he play there?
It's hard to say at this
point. I will say, because I had my sales kickoff on Wednesday, so I didn't get to watch any of them live, but it was really enjoyable. Like Madison being pregnant goes to bed early, and so there was just an endless amount of highlights for me to watch. So I literally just sat in bed on the iPad, just clicking the next game after game after game, just to watch all the goals.
Oh, yeah. That's so fun.
And Nwaneri's goal in that game too.
Yeah.
His goal.
Very, very Saka-esque.
He's special, man.
He's definitely been watching him. Yeah. That was and on his first Champions League start too. You mean Yamal this, you mean Yamal that. I'm
Oh,
team
Tony,
Yamal.
stop
I'm just
it.
kidding. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. No.
I'm back on Haaland's side. I'm back on Haaland's side.
That's exactly why I said
We
that.
just defended you.
No, I know. That's why I said that, I swear.
The
But
Lamine Yamal run that he had this weekend,
Oh.
where
Oh
he
my
dribbled.
God.
Oh my God!
I've
I'm
watched
telling you,
I've
I
watched
don't
that
want to
video
say.
so many times.
I don't want to say. I didn't say the name, but I haven't seen anybody do something like that since Messi. For real,
Yeah.
like
I've been thinking about that too. And that's the other shitty part is like, do you want to be one of those people that like you see a young kid like around that same age when Messi and Ronaldo started becoming themselves?
with braces.
Do you do you want to get in early on these guys and potentially be wrong, or like do you just like wait until they're already 5-6 seasons in and are consistently doing it and then be like, oh, this guy is the next version of
He's
that?
on the board. You know what I mean?
He's definitely
he's
on the
high
board.
up on the board.
But I think something that's so interesting is just how quickly it can be taken away. You have
Yeah.
Ansu
Right.
Fati.
I think that's a social media thing too, like
But
at least
it's
in the
like,
eyes of people.
It's the injury thing, man. Like
Yeah.
Ansu Fati was I mean, you have to remember he was just as highly, if not more highly rated than Lamine Yamal is right now. Like he was doing it in a messy Barcelona side, scoring goals in the Champions League, scoring for Spain, starting for Spain, and then back-to-back knee injuries, and now he's just rotting away on the bench. He went to Brighton for a year and played like 6 times. Like, I mean, it's just football can change so fast, but you got to enjoy it while it's here. Messi was 20, 21 years old when Ronaldinho said that he was going to be the best player in the world. So Lamine Yamal, fortunately, still has 4 years before that's a reality for him, but he's a special talent.
You want to talk about kids real quick?
I don't, but you can.
Spurs. I mean, pause. Spurs, 3 academy graduates on the score sheet. Are we kidding? That was electric.
We love academy
Scarlett,
players on the score sheet, baby.
Dane Scarlett in a must-win game in the Europa League at home, 70th minute. Ajayi, don't even know, never even heard of this kid, ever.
That's the best part about it.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Comes in and just first 2 minutes of him being on the pitch, 1-2 pass with Dane Scarlett, sets up a great goal, and you could just see he was so gassed. And then Mikey Moore, my 17-year-old that I root for, whatever.
Yeah, you got to tread carefully on this segment.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I know. This is weird, but he's the English goal scorer in any European competition ever. That's pretty cool. And most of those guys ended up doing okay with their careers. So that was awesome. Do I trust them to play week in, week out in a Premier League match? No, but it's so cool to see that. And like that was up until this weekend the highest point I had for the year. Maybe bar Man City. Just seeing the kids come in when they're needed. It's not even like we're just trying to get you minutes. We're up 4-0. It's like, yo, bro, we kind of need some goals here. Do you mind replacing Richie and getting on the score sheet? And then they came through. That was sweet. Top 8, 4th place. Sets up, we needed those 2 weeks off more than anyone, I think. So that was electric. But all in all, enjoyed the rounds and how they went.
As we close here, fellas, I want to ask you all the question. Now that it is officially the end of the January transfer window, which January transfer do you think will have the biggest impact on their team for the rest of the season?
Does it be anybody, or is it like our teams?
Well, not all our teams made signings, so it can be
Dorgu.
Any of the teams.
As weird as it sounds, I mean, and I think this is also some recency bias in the fact that we've just watched him. Marmoush is insane.
Yeah.
He didn't get his feet. He didn't have an amazing performance against Arsenal. I think that was going to be a hard game for anyone coming in and just sliding into and just start banging goals. The first game we saw against Chelsea, he was so good. And like we've talked a ton about how they're missing that player underneath Haaland. This could be that that fill-in role. This could unlock a lot of things that he didn't have going for Man City. So I don't think in just a purely, one player comes in and lights the world on fire. I think he helps unlock that attack with his runs and creativity, which is something they've not really had. I think Nikki brought it up, and Nikki's not here to talk about it, and I do think it's worth the conversation. Phil Foden's not the same player that we've known over the last few years. And, I think this Marmoush cat's coming in and kind of giving the spark to City in the way that Phil Foden used to. Inside, outside, runs through the middle, runs, in behind. So I think someone that would just immediately help the general, overall team, I think he's pretty high up there.
It's a good shout.
I think he's one. It's just strictly looking at England. I think it either has to be him. I also think Nico Gonzalez, who City just signed. I think City's biggest gap is in their center midfield.
Was that? Yep.
Like I think that's their biggest gap. So I think his impact's going to be pretty big. I think like looking at like world football is kind of crazy because like I hate that Kavacha signed for PSG. Yeah, because he signed for PSG. I don't know. It's tough.
I think that'll be a big spot because they're like bottom half of the Champions League.
Yeah, they'll have to make a run
table right now. And I was looking up.
What are they doing with all those attackers, bro? They need to just
look like Chelsea.
Ties,
well, that's why they're like, you guys want Asensio? Sure, take him. Sure, no big deal.
Barcola, bro. Dembele hasn't even started.
I think Barcola is wrong. So I mean, Dembele's got back-to-back hat tricks.
Yeah.
I'm also going to say that Nico Gonzalez makes the biggest impact on City for the rest of the year.
Their midfield has been terrible.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Nico Gonzalez, he's a La Masia graduate from Barcelona. He is just a big physical motherfucker. He does all of the dirty work. He's a tempo setter in the midfield. He was coming up alongside like Pedri, kind of in that same class, and they were two completely different players. Pedri was just like this beautiful Andres Iniesta kind of vibe, and Nico Gonzalez reminded me of like a Sergio Ramos just flying into tackles, that kind of vibe. So I think that that's exactly what City needs, a dog who can run for days, and I think that that's going to be a nice little Band-Aid until Rodri can come back from his knee injury, and then even then, I think that the both of them play significant minutes together.
How much money has Man City spent in January?
210.
Just lose to Arsenal. But 60 million. Let's go get another one.
Dude, I mean, it's insane. It's like it bothers the fuck out of me whenever like all these clubs, including the one that I support, say like in January there's no business to be done. Like clubs don't do business in January, and you have Man City doing 210.
To be fair, they didn't do like anything in the summer.
Yeah, but I don't really give a fuck. Right. Like if they're going to do $210 million worth of business, those guys are out there to do deals with. And then you had Chelsea, what was it, January of 2023, where they did like 300 million in January or some shit like that. Like it's just insane.
Well, we're looking at Nico Gonzalez's like market value of 18 million.
That's what I don't understand either.
60. You know what I mean? Like, on the same opposite side of the token, though, it's like, yes, they did go do all this business, but it's because they massively overpaid because they can and they need them right now. You know what I mean? Like that's not something that any of our clubs could do.
Yeah. I mean, you're offering 70 million for Mark Gahey. I do think if that goes through, the 70 million for Gahey, I think that would go down as it wouldn't necessarily go the way that the Maguire to United went, because I think Gahey in general is just like a more like calm presence. He's not as polarizing of a figure as Maguire is, but I think it would be one of those like overpaying by 40 million kind of things. But gentlemen, that wraps it for us on this week's episode of the Mecca of Banter podcast. Want to give a quick shout out to Michael Sinnott, Tactics with Michael on Twitter. Lucas and I ran into him last night, got to catch up with him for a while.
What a guy.
19 days from time of recording until the kickoff.
18 when you're listening to this.
Yeah, 18 when you're listening to this from the start of the St. Louis City season. February 5th, the Coachella Valley Invitational kicks off. Reminder that you can...
Baby.
Yeah,
we got some streams.
Yeah, we got some streams. Excited to see that 343. Shout out Tactics with Michael, and we'll check in with you all next week. Cheers.
Yeah,
Cheers, boys.